Jonathan vaulted the split-rail fence, hardly breaking stride. As he came up to the house he'd lived in most of his life, his mother appeared at the door. From behind her skirts his young brother and sister poked their heads. "What is it?" his mother called before he spoke a word. He could see her worry. Each stroke of the distant bell seemed to make her wince. She had always hated the war, even talk of it, fretting so about his brother, who had gone off and yet never sent a word, not one. At her question, Jonathan stopped short, not wanting to get too close. His bare toes curled into the soft earth. "Don't know," he replied. "Pa told me to see if anyone came through with news." "Not here," she said. "Maybe they're going back to Trenton, take back Trenton," he said. 2 years before, only 20 miles away, General Washington had beaten the Hessians there. "Think they might?" he asked, looking about for his shoes. She didn't reply. And then, as suddenly as it began, the ringing cackled. The ringing of the bell stopped, leaving an empty silence. Jonathan wondered if he was already too late. "Want me to go to the tavern to find out what it was?" he asked, edging closer in. He had spied his shoes. They were on the bench by the door. "Your father tell you to?" When Jonathan gave no reply, she pushed a slip of hair beneath her cap and slapped away a tugging child's hand. "Maybe you'd best," she said. "Your father can't, and we don't want to be surprised." Not wanting to give her time to change her mind, Jonathan leapt forward, pulled on his shoes, then bolted up and began to run. "Just find out," she called after him. "Then come right back, you hear?" Pretending he had not heard, Jonathan kept up his steady run. 10:25. Jonathan lengthened his stride, turned a sharp angle, then beat his way to the creek. He passed the cooling house. He sped along the path that edged the old dark woods there, where the warm, soft smell of rotting wood filled the air. Maybe, he thought as he ran, maybe it was going to be a battle, a big one. Maybe he would take a part. "Oh, Lord," he said to himself, "make it be a battle, with armies, big ones, and cannons and flags and drums and dress parades." Oh, he would fight. Good as his older brother. Maybe good as his pa. Better, maybe. "Oh, Lord," he said to himself, "make it something grand." He was running harder now, having broken from the path to the Alexandra road. He passed the place where a boy he knew used to live. They hadn't quite been friends. He'd gone off and gotten killed. Jonathan didn't like to think of that. Besides, the boy's folks said it was an awful war, cursed it, spat on it when they could. People, hearing them, hinted that they might be secret Tories. There were lots of Tories like that around, spies and turncoats all. Such folks were warned to keep their thoughts to themselves. Tories got what they deserved. Jonathan moved up a small hill, and once on top paused to catch his breath. A swirl of red-breasted pigeons coursed the air. A squirrel scolded. A crowd cackled. It was spring, and warm and wonderful, ripe for war. Jonathan felt sure he could try anything, be anything, do anything anyone might set before him. And even as he stood there, unsure what to do, the bell resumed its vibrant call. He could go home or to the tavern. But if he went to the tavern, he knew it wouldn't be just to get the news. He meant to go and fight. Do it, he told himself. Go and fight. His father was afraid, but he wasn't. And again he began to pelt towards the sound of the bell, his blood as warm as the swollen springtide earth. The tavern was the biggest place around, and was perched on the highest point. Built entirely of stone, it seemed a fortress, a castle at the crossroads, with sparkling glass windows and a high peaked roof. To the south 7 miles was Pennington. 20 miles distant was Trenton town. The British and the hated Hessians held them both. 10 miles to the northwest lay Alexandra. Fleming was 6 miles north by east, and to the west, hugging the big river, lay Wells Ferry. Americans held those towns. Jonathan had been to none of them, American or British held. As he approached the tavern, Jonathan could see the bell. A friend, a boy his own age, was heaving the cord. The bell hung in its own rack, set up to sound alarms. It stood to one side of the green where the men practiced for militia duty, an exercise that Jonathan dearly loved to watch. Some men had already gathered at the tavern and were busy talking. Becoming shy, Jonathan slowed his pace. As he approached, a man climbed a tree to watch the roads. Jonathan wished someone would tell him what was happening, but no one paid him mind. He thought, "They don't know I've come to fight." "Here comes someone!" cried the man in the tree. "Got his gun?" "Looks it!" Cartridge, pouches, powder horns, and guns had been left against the tavern. Jonathan wished he'd brought his father's gun. He felt a tap on his shoulder. "Your father coming?" was the question. Before he could reply, someone else said, "His leg's still sittin' poor." They paid no more mind to Jonathan. Frustrated, he went over to the bell. They thought, though he would rather have spoken to the men, he talked to his young friend. "What's going?" he says. "Soldiers," said his friend, fitting the word between strokes of the bell. A whip of excitement cut through Jonathan. "Enemy ones?" he asked. "That's what they say," his friend replied.